Welcome to the Hud Grad Club. I'm Chris Webb, and I'm the Alumni Engagement Career Consultant with the University of Huddersfield's Careers and Employability Service. And, full disclosure, I'm also a University of Huddersfield graduate. So I've generally got pretty positive things to say about both the institution and any of our graduates. But don't take my word for it. In this podcast, we'll be meeting different members of the University of Huddersfield's global alumni community, finding out what makes them tick, about their experiences during their time at the university and their career journeys since completing their studies. Join us as we explore the inspiring, innovative and diverse range of individuals that make up the Hud Grad Club. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hud Grad Club, our podcast celebrating the University of Huddersfield alumni community. And Deborah, a very warm welcome.
Thank you. Hello, how are you?
I'm very good. Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you for joining us on the podcast today. And if we've got, first of all, I guess, any people sort of watching or listening to the podcast who haven't come across you before, can you just tell us a little bit more about what you studied at the university and what you're up to now?
Okay, hello everybody. So my name is Deborah Abisola, and I went to the University of Huddersfield 2007 to 2010. I studied advertising, media and design management. It was a 3-year course, actually it was a 4-year course, but you could do 3 years and 1 year of placement, but I opted to do 3 years. Advertising, media and design management, and currently I work as a revenue operations specialist for B2B technology companies.
Okay, fantastic. So I know we're going to kind of dig into the career journey a little bit more as we kind of go through the podcast, but we start every episode, as always, with our greatest Hud story section, which is all about your kind of time at the university, any sort of special memories or experiences you had whilst you were at Huddersfield. So are there any, I guess, particular kind of Hud stories that come to mind when you think back to your time at the university?
Yeah, I've got loads, but I'll keep it short. One of because going to Huddersfield, I'm from London, by the way, so it was a big experience going from south to north. And I'm not going to lie, one of my biggest experience, I talk about this a lot because I think it really shaped me as a person coming from London, was when I arrived and we had this bus that took us from the town centre to our accommodation, which is called South Hall. Basically, it's from the town centre and it takes you into this faraway place. And I just remember queuing up, and everybody was queuing up to get on the bus, and people said, "Thank you, bus driver," and all this nice stuff. Now, I'm not saying people are nice in London, but I remember calling my mum saying, "Mum, people are saying thank you, bus driver." Like, just the culture. So what I'm trying to say was my fondest memory was just the culture difference, right? South and north, it was just a whole different world for me. You know, I'd never gone anywhere across the UK other than living in southeast London. So going all the way to Yorkshire, and I remember when I was younger, I used to read stories about the Dell and watched Emmerdale and all this stuff. And I remember just going to Huddersfield and I'm thinking, oh, is this what I used to read about? This is Yorkshire. And, you know, I know, look, for a London girl, it was just like, wow. It was just like, this is the village, and it was just really nice. So those are some of my memories. And yeah, I don't know if that helps.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, as you say, like kind of a culture shock or like a cultural experience.
Yeah.
And other sort of people on the podcast say the same thing. I think particularly kind of people who've been sort of originally like based down south, as you say, especially London, which is kind of very unique place compared to lots of other places in the UK. And as you say, I think particularly in this part of the country where we are up in Yorkshire, you know, you're so much closer to nature, you're so much closer to basically green space, that I think it can be a little bit of a culture shock when kind of people come up here. So that's really interesting. It's kind of like, yeah, your fond memories, and lots of people mention Stalls Hall as well. It always kind of gets a shout out as being a unique part of kind of the Huddersfield experience, I guess. I guess as well, it'd be interesting to hear a little bit more about your degree. So can you tell us more about, I guess, why you decided to study the degree you did, and what was that experience?
Yeah, and like studying advertising, media and design management just came from going online. I remember when you're going to uni, you have a personal development, and they help you with your uni application. And so, what do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. And I remember I used to watch The Devil Wears Prada, and I just loved that world. And I used to watch advertising shows and that type of stuff. And I was just looking on the portal, and Huddersfield and Sutherland had this course that was just advertising, media and design management. And I thought, I'd love to do this course. And I put myself forward for it. And that day, actually, when I interviewed for because the course is basically you had to interview first, so you get your UCAS and then you had to interview. So I had to get on a bus and travel from London all the way to Huddersfield one day for a day trip, and it was just, as a 18-year-old, it was just exciting for me. So I came for a day trip and I had an interview with a lovely lady. I'm not sure she's still there, Claire. So she's in the arts and design school. And I had an interview with her, and I interviewed really well. And they said, we're offering you an unconditional offer. So you got to imagine, I was just like, unconditional. And I remember going home, looking on Google, thinking, oh, so this offer means whatever happens with UCAS, we love you, we want you on the course. And I just remember just feeling so great. But because I'm a bit competitive, I still wanted to get my grades, get my points, and make sure that I earned the right to be on the course. But the course mimicked real life, real agency. So there was a bunch of us. We did different modules across the business, and we did a lot of things within the arts and design, but we did a lot in terms of just how an agency would run. So from getting your creative brief to creating the campaign, the different types of media. So it was really, really hands-on course, which I loved. And just recently, it's been quite triggering when you're hearing Rishi Sunak saying that he's looking at certain courses to scrap because he's thinking they're not worthy. And I'm just like, well, he better not touch those types of courses, because a lot of us that was on those types of courses, we did the academics, but we did the creatives. In one of our courses, we created a magazine, and we had to source the pictures, very hands-on, but also academic as well. So it was a great course for me. It set the precedent for my career anyway.
Yeah, it's great to kind of hear you saying that, Deborah, because I think you're right. There's a lot of debate around at the moment about what would constitute a kind of a low value degree course. At the time that we're recording this, who knows what will have happened when this is published. But as you say, I think it's really about drilling into, isn't it, what the students do on those courses. And as you said, a lot of courses from the outside, people might not know what they involve, but actually from the inside, there's a lot of both the practical, the creative, and the academic, as you say. So it's really good to hear that you feel you got a lot of value out of the course that you did at Huddersfield. And as you said, I guess it's connected with what you've then gone on to do in your career. So tell us a little bit more about that. So when you kind of finished the degree, what was the kind of journey after kind of graduating, and how has it sort of led you to where you are now?
Yeah. So for me, by the time I got to the second year of my course, I developed more, because going to university is really about meeting people, and those people shape you more than your course actually. So by the time I got to the second year of my course, I met my friends who did psychology. One of my friends did business. One of my friends, her mum worked for the UN, and she'll tell us all this great stuff that her mum does. So by the time I got to the second year of my degree, I wanted to do more, right? I wanted to do more. So when my degree finished, I decided to do a master's at the University of Leeds, which is next door. So I did a master's straight away in international communications. So that it was finishing that master's that then got me into work. So my first job was working in oil and gas as on a trading floor, but at the back office. So I started my first proper job as a graduate was actually working in oil and gas as a back office support personnel. Yeah.
Wow, and that's quite different, I guess, to some of the stuff you were talking about earlier, starting with The Devil Wears Prada, and then now we're talking oil and gas. So I mean, what was that first job like, I guess, in terms of, as you said, setting the platform maybe for what you then went on to do afterwards?
It was very daunting because first of all, I must be open, it broke me a bit because I remember just I come from a mindset of, you have a degree, so you're now going to become this big manager and this big boss, and you're going to do this, you're going to do that. But for me, it was more of, when I got the role, the recruiter said to me, well, you don't have any experience. you've done a master's, you've done a first degree, but you don't have any work experience. So the role that I can give to you is an entry role, working in a trading floor, supporting businesses. And I said, oh, okay, I'll take it on. So it was very daunting because I thought just having a degree could automatically get you up there. So for me personally, I had to start at that level. And it was good. It was an eye-opener. It was a trading floor. As you can imagine, it was crazy. People were swearing on that floor because when the deals went down, everyone's gone mad. And I was managing the back office of it. So a trader could just scream, I need to deal ticket 275. 275, I needed to find that deal ticket and hand it to him, digitalize it. But like I said at the beginning, right now, I'm a revenue operation analyst. And with starting as a back office, supporting business at the back office, now I started to pick up different skills in systems and processes, right? So after that, I worked for a Salesforce partner, like a Salesforce partner company. And Salesforce is a CRM. And what that does is I just took on the role. It was a contract role. I took on the role and I was helping businesses implement Salesforce CRM. And then I did that for a bit. And then just from there, just different opportunities came up again in different B2B technology, working in systems and CRMs, working in marketing teams, working in sales teams, and so on. Yeah.
And what do you sort of enjoy about that type of work? Because as you said, it's sort of the degree, I guess you did, there were loads of options you could have gone on to do because it's quite broad, as you said, it's practical, but there's lots of different areas within it that you could have kind of explored. Once you kind of ended up in, as you said, working with sort of CRM systems and business to business type stuff, what's kind of kept you in there, I guess? What sort of kept you interested in that industry and I guess moving between those different roles?
I think just the idea of being a fast learner, and there's this element where what it is today is not what it is tomorrow. So you need to be flexible, right? Because systems and processes, things change every day. So you've got to adapt quickly. And also, I like also the fact that you can be creative. Funny enough, because my course was creative. So even now on my CV, I always say to people, I'm a creative strategist, because if you have somebody that there's not creative, sometimes things can be bland. And even when you work with data now, I always say to people, you can tell stories of data and you can do it creatively. So it still goes back to that background where I did start off from a creative place. And then now people in the types of work that I do, people now say, we need somebody that has entrepreneurial flair. We need somebody that's a people's person. We don't just want somebody that comes in and crunches numbers, because how are they going to display that number? How are they going to, represent that? So I always still find that creative background from Huddersfield is still here in me, but I'm working with systems, I'm working with stakeholders, I'm working with sales teams. So yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I guess you don't always notice or think about that sort of stuff when you're at the start of your career, but you kind of, as you say, you look back and then you think, oh, actually, all those things I kind of took on early on in my career have really supported with that. Have there been any other, I guess, kind of sort of light bulb moments in your career or kind of lessons you've taken from it where you've sort of thought, oh, I didn't know that when I graduated, but now that's been a really important thing for me, and I've realised that's had a big impact, on my career so far.
Yeah, and I think it's just 11 years of reflecting, or because things will happen and you're piecing things together. When I look back and before I came onto this podcast, I was reflecting of my time in Huddersfield. When I look back at my course, we did a lot of independent, it was a course where there's no right or wrong. It's not science, you see, where it's this is the formula. This, it's subjective, right? And working in that type of environment actually helped me across the board, because if I have an idea, I want to make that idea come to life. So, for example, at 22, I started a social enterprise called Social Media Training for Youth. And that was just really about partnering with colleges, organizations to really help young people understand that social media, they can use it positively. Social media is very important. This was way back in 2013, by the way. And being able to just, I would go out and I'll meet people and I can't imagine having my own idea. I can't imagine having my own business. And for someone like me, if I have an idea today, I get on the computer, I type it up, get a logo, register it, connect with people, share it, and I have something that I'm working with. I cannot attest that to my power alone. I can attest that to the background I've come in, because in my course, this is what we did. We came together, we brought ideas to life, you know? So when I think about it, I can say those moments, those 3 years, they could have built my confidence as well. They could have given me that leg, you know, that extra model to say I can do what I need to do. So yeah, so even when I started my social enterprise, I did it for a bit, but then I needed to get a job because it wasn't making me money. But I put that on my CV, and a company called me, and because I had done a lot of training, a lot of adoption in that social enterprise, that's what they needed in their business. They wanted somebody to come in to train salespeople on Salesforce, on technology. So in a way, that idea that I went out to do for a year by myself actually got me another job. Do you know what I'm saying, Chris? So my advice is always, you've got to self-service at some point in your life. Of course, I do understand we're all not going to become entrepreneurs. We're not all going to have grand ideas. Some of us are going to work, but you've got to be able to self-service sometimes, right?
It's such a good point, and I think it sort of speaks to some of the dialogue at the moment in the media and elsewhere around kind of entrepreneurial skills, and whether that's something that we need to surface more explicitly in kind of education. Because, as you say, it's not just about people running their own businesses, but it's that idea of entrepreneurial kind of creative thinking, innovative thinking, and stuff that you bring to a company. You know, the idea that a company that's going to employ you doesn't need those skills is crazy, isn't it? You know, like actually you can bring those, as you did with your social enterprise, that skill set that you developed into an established company, and you're then making the difference with them. So that ability to interchange those skill sets, I think, is really important to mention. You talked there obviously about having, you know, kind of done a lot of stuff yourself. Have there been sort of any significant people, I guess, within your career so far that you'd want to give a shout out to on the podcast, who I guess have supported you along the way, or had kind of a significant impact, I guess, on your own career development?
Yeah, definitely. First person that I can think on top of my head is a lady called Teresa Doran, and she runs a recruitment agency in London here, and it's called Resource on Demand. So they place candidates for Salesforce ecosystem, and she placed me in that role that I was talking to you about CRMs. And yeah, ever since she placed me in that role, I've always dabbled in CRMs and data and so on. And she was very supportive of me. And also, I must say, you know, being a BAME, it's very, very important to have people that just support you and give you opportunity. Because someone like myself, I'm somebody that you see my name, Deborah Abisola, Baduri, you can fall under those stigmatization where maybe people don't want to give you opportunity. But someone like that, she gave me one of my first opportunity working for a Salesforce partner. And then another person, two people actually, that I would love to give a shout out to is Amanda Coles, and she's a marketing director at CyberArk, where one of the places that I worked. And in fact, everyone that worked under her, they were women, they were field marketers. And I had my daughter, I got married, had my daughter. And prior to that, my idea of being a mum and working was you go part-time. Where I've grown up, when you're a mum, you go part-time. But I go and work with this lady, and she's the marketing director, and she's got other field marketers working with her. They're all mums and wives, and they're doing it. And it just motivated me. I've never seen it before. And it just gave me life. Oh, okay. And she lived in Cornwall. She worked in London, and she had two boys. And just seeing her being the whole marketing director for the UK for this cybersecurity company, it motivated me. The team that worked under her motivated me. And then another lady as well, and Andrea Benson, she the company, I used to go to America to work for, to meet them, and every time I would meet her, she would support me. I remember she sat me down when she said, well, you're going to get a raise. I was like, oh, I was so shocked. Oh, we're gonna get a raise, so these women, they were very supportive, and they liked me, and they want to see me win, and they want the best for me. So yeah, definitely those three women. I haven't mentioned any men, but I do have a lot of men that help me. But these three women, they've been so great.
No, it's really, really great to hear. And I think, as you said, that having kind of advocates, having allies, cheerleaders,
Yeah,
through your career is so important, isn't it? People, as you said, that can kind of, help you to kind of access opportunities, or in some cases kind of beat down those doors that might be in the way that, as you said, may be kind of blocked, not because of anything you've done, but because of
yeah,
stigmatization or the way that the system's set up, and all
yeah.
those sort of things. So I think, yeah, great. And they sound well deserving of a shout out. So yeah, brilliant lineup. Thanks so much for kind of sharing, your reflections on your career so far, Deborah. I mean, I guess if we've got students and graduates who are watching this, whether they're from your degree background, or just kind of more generally from the University of Huddersfield or elsewhere, what sort of kind of careers advice, I guess, would you potentially share with them based on your experience? Would you have kind of one or two pieces of maybe underrated careers advice you'd like to share on the podcast?
Yeah, and I live by this now, and I'm telling myself this now. So it's to value where you are, value what you do. Because sometimes I feel we tend, and I do it. I'm one of my best friend. He told me like you're too down on yourself, and I'm working on that now. So this advice is coming from a real time experience of valuing exactly where you are and taking what you're doing very seriously. So the way I look at it is, even if your job is to remove chewing gum off the table, that's value. That's because you might think, oh, this is just my job. It's not the best job. I'm peeling chewing gums off the table. But guess what? You know the texture of the chewing gum, right? You know the texture of the table. And there could be somebody out there that's doing a study on chewing gum texture, on table texture. You will add value to that person. And that thing that they are looking for, you have it. So I'm generally, what I'm not to lose everybody, but what I'm just trying to say is, whatever you are doing, you've got to value it and just appreciate it in that stage that you're at. So I hope it helps. If it doesn't, I'm sorry, guys, but
No,
that's what.
I think it's a really good analogy. I mean, I know obviously, yeah, you could choose almost any example for it, but I think it's that idea of sometimes, as you say, we kind of maybe underplay not just sort of what we've achieved, but what we
Yeah,
know. Being
yeah,
experts in our own lives and experts in what we're doing. And
yeah,
yeah, very easy to maybe undermine that, and have
yeah,
that sort of negative self-talk. So I think it's such a great point. And, we often talk about that from a career service perspective, I think, in terms of that idea of adding value rather than selling yourself. Because I think selling yourself can sometimes feel quite, corporate, and not everybody likes that. But I think that idea of adding value, as you said, everybody can add value in some shape
yeah,
or form.
yeah,
And
yeah,
therefore, it's thinking about, well, what value is it that I can add? So I think that's such a good example. Um, so, I mean, Deborah, we're drawing close to the end of the podcast, sadly. But I guess if we've got any sort of students and graduates, or anyone else who's interested, who's been kind of watching or listening to the podcast, maybe wants to find out a little bit more about your work, about your kind of background, where can they find you online?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. Connect with me on there. So Deborah Abisola Aboduri. Just connect with me on there. And yeah, I'm always happy to connect with people. So yeah.
Fantastic. Well, what we'll do is, if you're watching the podcast, we will flash that up along the bottom of the screen so that you've got the link to kind of Deborah's LinkedIn. And if you're listening to the podcast, then all the details will be in the episode notes, as always. I think as well, Deborah, we shouldn't really finish the podcast without mentioning that you yourself have done a fair bit of podcasting. Would you like us to kind of give that a plug whilst you're here, or?
Yes, please do. I don't mind. So I have a podcast called Corporate Hard Talk, which really focuses on talking about some of the things that we go through in the corporate world. So yeah, I'll share the link to Chris, and you can have a listen.
Fantastic. Again, we will make sure that we flash that up on the screen. And if you're listening, you will find that in the podcast notes with all of the other information about the episode. But that brings us really, really nicely to the end of the podcast. So, Deborah, thank you so much for joining us, for sharing your reflections on your career journey and becoming the latest member of the Hud Grad Club. And obviously, we wish you well with everything moving forward.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much. And you're doing a great job of this. Thank you so much.
Take care. All the best. Enjoyed the podcast? Then go to the University of Huddersfield YouTube channel for all of our future episodes. Subscribe, like, and don't forget to hit the bell button for notifications. If you'd like to be involved in the Hud Grad Club podcast moving forward, please get in touch with us on alumni@hud.ac.uk.